Good evening from the Performing Arts Center at Highlands High School in Fort Thomas, Kentucky, and welcome to the first ever Fort Thomas City Council debate broadcast live on the NHFS website, brought to you by the Highlands Broadcast Department, the Student Youth Leadership Panel, and of course, Highlands High School. Thank you for being here with us tonight, and this evening we will bring you 6 incumbent council members vying for a spot at the City Council against 3 challengers, all of whom are members of our community and very established in that community. Tonight, we'd like to also thank our coverage, which is provided by Fort Thomas Matters via Facebook, and of course to our wonderful student staff here who have been, a member of this. Let me reference my notes real quick. Tonight, we present these 6 incumbent council members, and of course, we present the students of Highlands who have worked so hard to bring you this dedicated and very polished production of this city council debate. First, we'd like to introduce our councilmen. First, John Slaughter, Sam Shelton, Chuck Thompson, Lisa Kelly, John Muller, Jeff Bezold, Ken Bowman, Roger Peterman, and Mr. David Cameron. Candidates, I'd like to, at this time, announce the rules of tonight's debate. It is a play on the town hall format in which members of the Student Youth Leadership Panel will be asking questions they formulated in their discussions. Of course, this club meets every week to discuss political actions at the local, state, and national level. Candidates, you will have 60 seconds each to respond to these questions, and before we begin, we will also allow you to make a 60-second opening statement. At the end of tonight's debate, you will again have a 2-minute closing statement in which to wrap up your arguments or in order to bring up an issue that was not debated here on stage tonight. So, first, we do have our SYLP leaders here. We have Kayla Gronick to my left, your right, and Nathan Armstrong to my right, your left. Let me see. I believe we have the first question for Kayla, and you will be addressing Mr. Slaughter.
Thomas, it is well known that Tower Park holds a certain significance to the city, and as such, the park is central to public recreation. Tower Park specifically is often the location where many city-sponsored events, concerts, and festivals are held. However, some perceive a disparity between the city's use and attention to Tower Park and the city's others, such as Highland Hills and Rossford Park. If elected to City Council, in what ways would you plan for the city to more equally utilize its parks and green spaces? In what ways would you like to see Fort Thomas's parks used and enjoyed by residents? And how would the city go about promoting this?
Well, thank you for the question. I'll tell you, I'm very proud of the military history of Fort Thomas. Our namesake is named after a fellow West Pointer. General Thomas was a West Point graduate, as am I, and you can imagine the amount of pride I have in living here and growing up here. And certainly Tower Park reflects all of those things for me and as well for our residents. The buildings and structures that are there, including the VA homes that are there as well, are definitely a central part of our town and remind us of our military history and our proud heritage. The other parks as well have been certainly been maintained and brought up to snuff. And over the years, the last 5 or 6 years, all of them have been brought up to current standards. And I think all of them actually, I think a lot of them get used. It's just that Tower Park is awfully nice. I would say that as far as promoting those other venues, we certainly could do some other things at the other places, but to be honest, the infrastructure, the sound system, the amphitheater, all those things are readily available to us at Tower, and we need to take advantage of those. If we can do something similar to that at the other facilities, then absolutely, I think we can take better use of that space.
Thank you, Mr. Slaughter. Mr. Shelton, to you.
Thank you, Sam Rosensteel. Yes, we do use Tower Park very much so, because that is where Fort Thomas started back in 1887, I believe, when Samuel Bigstaff brought up 2 commanders from the Newport Barracks up here to show them. And this is really where Fort Thomas has started. So it is kind of our local get-together spot because everyone knows where it is located. And upon that, other parks have been improved within time, such as Rossford Park has been done recently with the new stuff. Highland Hills Park could use a little bit of updating. In fact, I believe the baseball fields are being redone and refinishing for the boys team, which is very nice. And we should do some stuff with them. And I would encourage local participants from our teenagers take advantage of them, and we can definitely come up with something that's energetic for all ages to use. Thank you.
Shelton, Mr. Thompson, to you.
Thanks, Sam. I just like to commend the previous councils, city council, current city council, and previous city council on the outstanding work they've done at the parks. All three parks have been improved dramatically over the past few years. Even in addition to the park down by Woodville, where there's now a great softball facility for our women's softball team in Highlands. The Fort Thomas, the Fort Park, obviously is set up for more event-related activities. The sound system, the stage, the parking, the mess hall, those types of facilities lend themselves more to community-wide events, where the other parks are more geared towards sporting events and specific games and so forth. So I would, I just hope the council would continue to look at opportunities to use those parks more fully. Continue with Merchants and Music and all the great things that are currently happening at Tower Park, and just make that a central part of our community and community involvement.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mrs. Kelly.
I think I've been on council since 2008. We've done a tremendous amount of changes to the park. We've improved each one of them, and it's in our part of our 5-year plan. We look at constantly trying new ways to improve each park and what we can do, and we're constantly, we have a lot of brainstorming sessions. You do have, just like Chuck was saying, the amphitheater, which is a wonderful place, and it serves large events, but, and the community center and all, that's kind of geared towards large events. Then we have, the baseball fields and smaller things, but equally as important, may not draw quite as large of a crowd, but we make sure, it's important to keep all of that up, and I think we've done a really good job. I would like to see some improvements to the dog park. Got some water issues and things, but other than that, I think it's a constant thing we're working on always to improve our community and have facilities that benefit everyone.
Thank you, Mrs. Kelly. I do apologize in my nerves. I kind of glossed over those opening statements. If we would please start with, Mr. Mueller down there with an opening statement, and then we will address a question from Nathan Armstrong.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having us here. This is really exciting. I know I'm a little as nervous maybe as these guys are. The first time we've done this as well. So my name is John Mueller. I moved here in 1998. So one of the things that is maybe unique about my approach to this is I actively chose to live here. My wife and I met in 97. We moved to Fort Thomas in 98 for a number of reasons, sidewalks being one of the number one. I love walkability, this town's connectivity, and the amenities they have really drew us here to start our family and be tax-paying citizens and add to the community however we could. So the YMCA, all the socially gathering places where we can have pizza and hamburgers and barbecue and just to get together and be in this town have been a wonderful thing. Also, one of the reasons I ran for council is in 2007 we had a health event in our family, and obviously my family was not here, neither was my wife's, and the community came together to support us in a way that was really unbelievable. So 10 years later, everything's good in the family, fortunately, and in a way, if we can give back in any way, so if I can give back in any way with offering time and talent to the city, that's why I committed to run last cycle and why I'm committed to run again. All those things, so just like what you talked about with the park, I think you asked a question about some disparity with Tower, was in that question as well, and I think that is one thing that we are still working on with the visioning process. And with the sesquicentennial coming up, Mayor Haas has started some visioning processes, and I'm very excited to be a part of that going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Mr. Bezold, 60 seconds to you.
Thanks for having us, guys. This is a really exciting event for all of us. Time for you to put faces with the names. A lot of the council people, current council and the candidates. It's exciting as a group to get together and discuss the topics. We don't have a whole lot of attendance, very good attendance at some of the council meetings, so maybe you guys will start coming to those and listen to the real live debates. But Jeff Beazold, I was born and raised here, went away to school, came back. I chose to come back here also. This is one of those communities that once you find it, you don't want to leave. And as John was saying, it's devote some time and talents for the betterment of the city and to be involved in the decision-making processes and just be able to give back as a whole is why I'm running, why I ran the first time, why I'm running again. Just to be involved. Did you want me to address the parks thing also?
We will actually ask another separate question, but thank you, Mr. Bezold. Mr. Bowman, to you, sir.
I guess I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm Ken Bowman. I opened a business here in '88. Kind of had a vested interest from that point. I've lived here all my life, but it began volunteer service in 2000 in the Fort Thomas Forward process, where all the utility lines got buried and the streetscape got all redone. That was kind of the beginning of my involvement in volunteer service. Did 9 years on the Renaissance Board before running for council. And I'm seeking a third term, and like I say, it's kind of a thankless job, but I'm happy to do what I can to better the city.
Thank you, sir. To you, Mr. Peterman.
Thank you, Sam. So we were asked to give our, 60-second Fort Thomas story, so I'll try and be quick on that. The thing that came to mind is how lucky I was, my family was, to find Fort Thomas. We moved here in 1983 and had a realtor that wouldn't show us any other places to live other than Fort Thomas, and she turned out to be exactly right. What a wonderful community we were fortunate enough to land in. We moved here because I took a job as a municipal bond attorney. A little bit of an esoteric job, but it involves government finance. So my full-time job is to deal with government finance at the state and local level. That, of course, was based on an interest in how state and local government works, and I've pursued that then on city council for 8 terms. So I have been on council through quite a bit of these events that we'll talk about tonight. The thing that I feel particularly blessed about is the opportunity to raise a family with my wife, Mary, 3 children who went entirely through the Fort Thomas school system and now have 4 grandchildren that are living here. But tonight, I think the thing that excites me the most, and I think about this a lot, is how great it is to see young people involved and interested in attending. Now, maybe some of you are getting class credit for attending. I get that. But people that are engaged in their community is what makes Fort Thomas a community. And the opportunity to observe that for 16 years on city council has been great for me. So thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Peterman. Mr. Cameron, to you.
Good, thanks, Sam. Good evening. We all know that Fort Thomas is a fantastic community. We have world-class schools, parks, infrastructure. The question I want to ask is, what can we do better? All of us should be asking this same question. And I don't mean to say that city government is the solution to all of our issues, but I do believe that an effective city government can drive investment through the recruitment of citizens and business. We need to drive investment in the city. If I'm on council, I will introduce programs that will not only invest in our businesses, but will invest in our homes and our residents. Fort Thomas has been a wonderful community to me and my wife. We've been here. We have a beautiful 1-year-old daughter who's somewhere in the back. And it's just been a great place to live for us. So if I'm elected to council, there's several things that I want to do, and we'll talk about them more later tonight. But one thing I really want to focus on is the VA homes. I have not been satisfied with the progress of the VA homes. I don't think many members of the council here have. Additionally, I think we all know that Fort Thomas is a great place to live, but I think it could be a little greater place to live. And we need to look at what can make it a greater place to live. I believe that I have the energy and the passion and the desire to work hard for all of our residents. And I appreciate the opportunity on November 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. And now we move over to Mr. Slaughter down here for an opening statement.
Thanks, Sam. June 5th, 1992 was the last time I was on this stage, a long time ago. I had to go back and look. I was receiving my diploma from Highlands, and Lieutenant Colonel Engelman presented my nomination to West Point that day. You can imagine I was excited and I was nervous, and if senioritis is still a thing, I bet it is, I couldn't wait to get out of here. But your perspectives change, and over the years they certainly did. So after 4 years at West Point, 6 years on active duty in the Army as a combat engineer, meeting my wife, having 2 children, raising a family, living in Missouri, Texas, Washington, back to Missouri, North Carolina, Connecticut. When the time came to settle down, when the time came to grow roots, to start businesses, to raise a family, put our kids through school, we chose Fort Thomas. I'm eager to serve the community that served me and my family so well over the years. I'm eager to serve a group of people that are tireless in their volunteerism. And the truth is, I just want to do my part. So thank you for your vote on November 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Slaughter. Mr. Shelton, your opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Rosensteel, and thank you for having us here tonight. Thank you all for showing up today. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Sam Shelton. I'm a very interesting and unique person, if you can't tell by the way I dress. I think differently, and that's how what I want to bring to City Council is fresh ideas and a young perspective to Council as well. And I'm sorry, this is just crazy being live. It's throwing me off my game.
Not the only one.
And I wanted to bring some stuff to City Council, and safety is one of them, with abandoned properties in Fort Thomas that need to be discussed, to having sidewalks on every street in Fort Thomas. I want to bring businesses to our community. We have so many that want to come. We just need to find room to put them in, because we welcome them very much. And just like Cameron, I do care about our VA homes, because that is a part of our history. It's a part of our culture, and that's what makes us us. So I would push and I will fight for stuff like this in City Council, because I care and I love this city so much, and I only want to see the best for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. I've been a Fort Thomas resident for 20 years. I'm kind of a transplant. I'm one of those people that came back with a spouse, which is very common in Fort Thomas. And for the 20 years I've been here, I've been involved in school board, the foundation, the Booster Association, and now City Council. I was raised all 3 of my children here. All 3 of my children graduated from Fort Thomas, Highlands High School. I have 8 grandchildren. 7 of them are located here. 2 of my children are located in Fort Thomas. And I find Fort Thomas to be a very unique place. It doesn't happen by accident. It's the result of committed parents, committed teachers, an excellent school system, beautiful homes, and outstanding city government. I was very honored when I was asked to complete the term of Adam Meyer for 2016, chosen by the 5 remaining current council members and the mayor. And I view that as a great honor among 13 people. So I'm about service, and I will probably do that until I can no longer serve. This is another opportunity to assist my community, assist our citizens, and make Fort Thomas continue to grow, continue to improve, and be the unique city that it is.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mrs. Kelly.
Hello, my name is Lisa Kelly. I've lived here for the most part, probably about 36 years in Fort Thomas, which, if you do the math, well, I came here when I was around 10, so if you do the math, you can figure out how old I am pretty quickly. There is no other city that I can think of that is like ours. It's truly unique, and the community is unlike any other. Our school system is amazing, and the support for the schools is amazing. The parent involvement, it's just a whole different group of people. My kids went to school here. Oh, my daughter did. My son still goes here. Been to all the parks. We've been to everything that goes on in town, and I'm very proud to, call this home. I have 2 businesses in Fort Thomas, which are kind of linked together, Dirty Harry's Dog Spa and Pet Once in Fort Thomas. And I think not only do I love what I do, and I get to see people from the community, I think it's very beneficial to have your business within the city, and people are coming in, and you hear all kinds of things that people want. How about this? How about that? And it helps kind of brainstorm. So I do this because I love it, and I love the city.
Thank you, Mrs. Kelly. Next, we have a question from Mr. Nathan. I'm so sorry, I forgot your last name. Mr. Nathan Armstrong, of course. Mr. Nathan Armstrong has a question about Wi-Fi hotspots in Tower Park and around Fort Thomas. And candidates, I would like to remind you that 60 seconds is the time we have, and I do have a bell up here that will cut you off, but don't feel like you do need to stop in your tracks, finish your last statement, and we will go forward so that way every candidate does have time to answer tonight. So, Mr. Mueller, to you, sir.
As we dive deeper into the 21st century, internet access is becoming more and more prevalent in society. Many cities all over the world are providing free Wi-Fi access to their citizens in many public places. Should our city use some of its budget to implement this service? If so, who specifically will determine exactly where the hotspots will be? What criteria should be considered as to the placement of these hotspots?
Okay, thanks for the question. And it's a good question. It's one that I asked one of my friends is in IT in the last session. I was running for this, and I said, "What about this? What about free hotspots?" And his first answer to me is, "Nothing's free." Okay, nothing's free. So we want to be very careful as a government entity not to compete with private business. So that's just something that we have to figure out how are we going to put it in the budget? Would Time Warner want to do this? Would Cincinnati Bell want to do this? Should we partner with them in a way? So we've got to work out some of those details. It's a great idea. Access to the internet and access in our businesses. It would be a great thing. Many of the businesses already provide it, right, through their own internet provider. So it's just something we got to work out the details. And that's a lot of these ideas. The hard work is in the details. The VA homes, it's been a long pull, and we're still pulling that way. And the details of that are what's preventing it, frankly. So the Wi-Fi hotspots, great idea. We gotta partner with businesses, not compete with them.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Mr. Bizold, to you, sir.
I think the Wi-Fi hotspots are a great idea, all throughout town. If I was going to choose where they would go, indication that I've had from some of the residents that I've spoke with about this central business district, the park systems. John was saying, definitely something we need to partner with one of these providers, one of these business, one of these Time Warner, one of the internet providers. I couldn't think of the terminology. So, and it's something we've already talked about in council. It's a topic that's already been discussed, and one of the brainstorming sessions we actually discussed that plans moving forward with that. So it's in the books, on the books. It's in the works. We're trying to figure out the hows and the whats for it. But great
Mr.
question.
Bowman, to you, sir.
Naturally, I agree. It would be an awesome thing if it were widespread and we had Wi-Fi all over the city. There's a lot of logistical concerns to make that happen. And as has been said, we just now started the conversation about that as to what the possibilities are, if we would need to partner with a commercial entity to sponsor the program as well. I believe Newport has in their CBD a system that's up and running now, and it does have a partner that is funding it. It's revenue neutral to the city, but it's limited in its scope and where the spots are through the CBD. So I would love to see it happen and do what we can to facilitate that. But the conversation just began, literally, a couple of months ago.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Mr. Peterman, to you, sir.
I think John framed the issue pretty well. This whole internet system is evolving. I mean, the advances that are made are incredible. And when I started on council, I don't think we had, the internet access, not the speed that we have today. So it's something that we need to stay absolutely on top of as a community, and it's a great question, Nathan. One thing that has happened in Kentucky, though, and I agree that the private sector is currently the predominant provider of this service in this area, and we should be mindful of that, and maybe that's the best approach. But for Kentucky as a whole, that service wasn't being provided by the private sector. So Kentucky, the state, is now constructing what's they call Kentucky Connect. I had the good fortune of being involved in the financing of that system. And that's an internet pipeline, high-speed pipelines that are being built around the state. And we may have an opportunity to take advantage of that and even provide higher speed, better service here in an efficient manner.
Thank you, Mr. Peterman. Mr. Cameron.
Thanks, Nathan, for the question. Yes, I would absolutely support city hotspots or even city-wide Wi-Fi. Of course, the question, as you heard tonight, is really how do you pay for such a service? I think if you want to attract small business and attract young professionals to Fort Thomas, one of the key ways would be to offer Wi-Fi. Look at the new businesses. They're not the traditional businesses. Many are often high-tech businesses that require high-speed Wi-Fi or landlines. Again, if you went the citywide Wi-Fi route, if you went the hotspot route, many arguments for various locations for the hotspots, Tower Park being an obvious one, Central Business District, Midway District. But again, I think it's something that the city could explore. I think it really would add to the future. I heard a great quote recently is, you can either be a taxi or you can be Uber. This is a possibility for the city really to take us to the next level, not just the next 5 years, but the next 10 and 20 years.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. And now Nathan has another question for this side of the room about the VA homes in Tower Park.
With the recent addition of businesses like Top This and Colonel D, and with the possibility of a hotel project in the future, is there a cohesive master business plan in place to attract more diverse businesses to the city? Additionally, in your view, what businesses in particular would make a good addition to the city and why? Finally, how can the city council increase citizen participation in developing a master business plan?
Thank you, Nathan. Mr. Slaughter, to you.
Thanks for the question, Nathan. Well, I think that really what you're getting at here is, what direction are we headed? And the visioning process that we're going through right now, led by Mayor Haas, speaks directly to that. And certainly the master plan for the business districts, truthfully, as a challenger, I haven't seen all those documents. I haven't been a part of those discussions. But I can tell you from the outside looking in, I can tell you that Fort Thomas offers more than ever to small businesses to start up. My wife has started 2 businesses here in town. I can tell you that the city has been very helpful in getting those off the ground, and certainly has been accommodating, in a variety of ways in helping her get started. And I would tell you that that's the way we need to approach this. This isn't a situation where the government gets to decide, or the city gets to decide who's coming and who's not. It's a matter of supporting those who want to come to Fort Thomas, and there are a lot of them. And I think the best thing that we can do is to provide support as best we can and give them as much opportunity as we possibly can to get off the ground and get started.
Thank you, Mr. Slaughter. Mr. Shelton.
Thank you, Mr. Rosensteel, and thank you, Mr. Armstrong, for the question. For this one, I have to agree with Mr. Slaughter on this one, is that we are outsiders pretty much to City Council on the business stuff. And I'm 18 years old, so I don't own a business in Fort Thomas, so I don't quite understand that part of that. However, I think we do have a lot of businesses that want to come to Fort Thomas. After talking to our Fort Thomas Renaissance and Economic developer, we have a lot of businesses that definitely want to come into Fort Thomas. With that said, I don't think that the city should be in charge of what businesses come and go, for say, into our city. We welcome them all with open arms, and we think that they'll make a good addition to our city. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the second part to the question.
In your view, what businesses in particular would make a good addition to the city and why?
Well, that goes back to what I said. Any businesses will do a good thing. I really kind of want a bike shop in Fort Thomas, just because. So,
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. Mr. Thompson.
I think the city has done a good job in attracting some businesses. It needs to improve. It needs to continue. We've had a couple new businesses open. Slaughter's Design Studio and the Donut Place and the Spice Place and the Fort Thomas Coffee. All of those are great additions to our town. I personally would like to see more outside dining, things that bring people to the city center to spend time and to get into community with other people. Obviously, the city needs to be a partner in that, including providing zoning variations when they make sense, because there has to be an attraction to come to Fort Thomas. Fort Thomas community has money to spend, and I'd like to see our citizens stay more in the Fort Thomas community as they purchase goods and services.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mrs. Kelly.
Let's think. I would kind of like to see something like an open air market, something similar to like a Findlay market or something similar to our farmers market, but it's location. Do we have the space? Is it feasible? Things like that. It's not as simple as just wanting something and doing it. And I think we have added so many businesses, and I think Fort Thomas is great. The community is great for supporting. I think our community is invaluable for that, and I love to see, my business used to be in the center of town, and I could see all the people going back and forth, and I was never usually down in the Midway District, and now it's just a whole different area, and it's so nice to see everybody coming and going, and I love the outdoor dining idea, and events and things like that. I would like to see, with our businesses, more of an advertising where it's not a pay-as-you-go, where it's for everybody and nobody has to join. Like something more universal.
Thank you, Mrs. Kelly. And speaking of business plans, most of Fort Thomas is curious about what the council's plans are for the VA homes in Tower Park. And with more on that, we go to Kayla Gronick for her question.
There seems to be a controversy regarding the homes in Tower Park that currently reside under VA claims. What is the status of the project? Would more direct contact with federal officials such as Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, and Thomas Massie, or even the current Secretary of the Veterans Administration and former Procter & Gamble CEO Robert McDonald assist in lobbying the federal government for a successful acquisition of the homes?
Thank you. Mr. Mueller, to you.
All right, very good. Good question, and we all want to know it, right? We've wanted to know it since I moved here in '98. That's been on something we've been talking about. Our chief administrative officer is in the very upper deck up there, and he is in communications with the VA quite often. So part of this, back to somewhat to the business, Debbie Buckley she's our economic development manager, and she comes to council. She came and gave a report last meeting. The businesses are nearly 100% occupied. 100% occupied. So when we talk about more coming, we need some more space for them to go. So she does a lot of that work behind the scenes because you can't reveal negotiations, okay? It's similar with the VA. They are the ultimate in bureaucracy, and bureaucracy is what's slowing that down. Not your electeds, bureaucracy. The EPA, all of those restrictions on transferring lead and asbestos and wiring, getting through those details is the simple holdup.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Mr. Bezold.
I'd like to piggyback off what John was talking about. So Ron, the city administrator, is doing a great job communicating with the VA to move that project forward. I know that it's been a hot button for many, many years now. Ron is doing an excellent job with that communication since it's picked up for the last year and a half, 2 years now. It's something that we all want to see done, and something that we're all pushing to get done as quick as possible, but I think there's a misconception out there. It's not council or the city or the staff that's holding up the process. It's the DA, this is not a priority. And I know that current staff is making it a priority and making better and bigger steps in that process, but it's going to take a lot more, I guess, elbow grease, and I know that Ron's doing a really good job with that, and hopefully we can put the gas down a little bit more.
Thank you, Mr. Bezold. Mr. Bowman, to you.
That's a great question, and it's in the minds of many and really hard to adequately address in 60 seconds. But as a council person, we're very limited. We can't negotiate or have multiple negotiators. We have a structure of our government. We have a city administrator his primary role is to put all the pieces in place, and then we are in a position to review and approve or disapprove or have a talk about it. But we're very limited in what we can do as council people to really drive the process. I feel good that probably by January we're going to have some real positive news to share. Bloomfield Schoen was the preferred developer selected. They had a year to present a plan to see what, if any, skin in the game the city would have to make it pencil out and make sense for them to develop. Their year ran out. They had 2 more 90-day extensions on the contract that were both granted to them, so they have another 180 days to come to us with a plan. And I'm optimistic that we will see something by January or so.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Mr. Peterman.
Yeah, Ken, that was a good summary of the recent history of this, and how frustrating it's been, having been on the council for a number of years, watching this evolve and having to watch the city try to work through the bureaucracy that exists in the Army, and then right up through congressional committees. It's pretty phenomenal how difficult it really is. I've had that experience in other with the Corps of Engineers, for example. Same thing. Just to get them to actually take some money that we wanted to offer them with the South Bank Partners development of the Ohio Riverfront took a year and a half to take money from us. And to go through a congressional subcommittee, so it's really difficult. But I am more optimistic now. We've moved down the line. We do have a developer with a proven track record of undertaking projects like this. There are environmental problems at that site, which adds another whole layer of issues that we have to deal with. But I think we're still plugging away and moving as fast as the federal government will allow us to.
Thank you, Mr. Peterman. Mr. Cameron, to you.
Great, thank you. Yes, the VA homes, it's on top of everyone's list. When I knock on doors, it often comes up. I run past those homes on a weekly basis. In the last 2 years, they've deteriorated to a point maybe that they cannot be restored anymore. What's also frustrating is the city tells us it's the VA's fault. However, I recently called the federal delegations up, and when I speak with them, I get a different answer. They say, well, the city's not coming to the table. So what's the real answer here? I pledge that if I'm your councilman, I will get to the bottom of this. I will be the advocate that these homes need and deserve. This is a prime real estate in the center of our city and needs to be developed to the utmost care and keeping the historic integrity of these homes. So again, council's worked very hard on these homes, and we appreciate that fact. But I am going to be the squeaky wheel that finally gets the grease from the VA.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron, for your response, and thank you all candidates for your response. This concludes the first half of our stream of the Fort Thomas City Council debate. We'll be back after 10 minutes on our second stream.